Hey, health students. Back to talk a little bit more here about sexually transmitted diseases. Specifically today, we'll talk a little bit more about HIV and AIDS. Yesterday was kind of the introduction to it, but today we'll talk more about preventing and treating different types of, be a little deeper into the treatment portion of it and what is expected as somebody's infected with HIV. So HIV is preventable and treatable, but at this point still not curable. There are some drugs that they've come up with, some antiviral drugs that can keep people in the state of HIV for extended periods of their life. An example of that would be, I think I was in about third or fourth grade when I heard that Magic Johnson, former professional basketball player, was HIV positive. That was third or fourth grade. He's still HIV positive, has not gotten to the level of AIDS, from what I remember or from what I can recollect. So there are some pretty good drugs some pretty good antiviral drugs that can keep someone in the state of HIV. When they get into AIDS, that's a portion where people, that's pretty much going to be the death of them if they get into that portion. Preventing HIV and AIDS. There are many actions you can take to avoid contracting HIV and AIDS. Yes, the CDC estimates that about 25% of the people in the United States who are infected with HIV don't know that they're infected. I think just thinking about, not necessarily think about disease infection in general, not necessarily an STD, but think about the world that we're living in right now. The biggest problem right now is testing. Is people don't know, or I should say the biggest problem is some people don't know that they're infected. They haven't tested themselves, and the other big piece is asymptomatic at the moment. So people can be contagious and contract things without knowing that they have it. So going back to a sexually transmitted disease like HIV, you could be asymptomatic. You may not know that you have it, but if you're practicing smart behaviors, there should be no reason that somebody that has it should be passing it on, so to speak. The following helpful behaviors are going to help you protect yourself from infection. Practicing abstinence. Don't share needles, knives, or razors. Avoid situation where drugs and alcohol might be there to compromise your decision making. And use your refusal skills when you feel pressured to engage in any types of risky behaviors that can put yourself at risk. HIV and AIDS among teens, you could just see going through some of the years here. We'll only go back to as far as about 1995 and only up to about the year 2007, but you can see the number of cases of teenagers throughout the United States. In the blue on the bottom are cases of males, and in the red just above it are the cases of females, and then the total amount that particular year teenagers that were infected. I should say diagnosed and the people that knew that they were infected, that had tested themselves. Again, there's probably another, add 25% to that, people that don't know that they're actually infected. Diagnosing HIV and AIDS, several tests are used to diagnose HIV/AIDS. If someone believes that he or she may have been exposed to it, the person must be tested. Typically, a blood sample or an oral specimen from between the inside of the cheek and the gum is collected and sent to a laboratory for analysis. At most testing sites, qualified personnel are available to answer questions, make referrals, and explain the results that come back. Types of laboratory HIV tests. After collected samples are sent to laboratory, technicians screen them for HIV antibodies. A person's body does not naturally have HIV antibodies. They're produced only in the presence of an infection. So the only way you'd ever have antibodies for HIV is if you were infected with it and your body has had to deal with it. Okay?
EIA, enzyme immunoassay.
So,
the first test to be run to detect HIV antibodies.
enzyme immunoassay is just a test that's used first. It's a preliminary test. Once this is tested positive, then they go to another version of the test another test to confirm. Okay, and that's this one.
Western blot, used to both detect HIV antibodies and to confirm the results of earlier EIA tests.
Okay, so this is done after an EIA tests positive. If the results of 2 EIA tests and Western blot tests are all positive, the person's diagnosed with HIV. Many health departments and HIV information and counseling centers are going to pay for the costs of these tests. Okay, some additional tests that take place: they do an RNA test, they do a CD4 test. RNA test is how many copies of the virus are circulating in the blood, so they check that out. The CD4 test, how many white blood cells are in a sample of blood. Okay, the smaller amount of white blood cells that the body tends to produce, the closer somebody is to being deemed have AIDS versus HIV. Okay, then there's the rapid test.
Rapid test, used in situations where the infected person might not come back to learn the results to a test. A blood sample is collected and analyzed immediately.
Okay, the rapid test can be used in situations where the infected person might not come back to learn the results of the test, like they said. Home testing kits are approved by the FDA, are available at several pharmacies and stores, and some tests require that a person provide a spot of dry blood, which is mailed to the laboratory for analysis. Other tests can be provided at home as well too. So there are some benefits of getting early diagnosis. The earlier that somebody detects these things, begin the proper care early to slow down the progression of the virus. They can get into treatment with antiviral drugs. They may be able to, like Magic Johnson, stay in a state of HIV for decades. Avoid behaviors that can spread HIV to others. The sooner you know, and people should be practicing safe sex practices as it is already, but some choose not to. But the sooner that you know, the sooner that you can start to either change behaviors that are risky or continue on with the behaviors that are not risky, whether that's abstinence, whether that's practicing safe sex, and gain peace of mind when the results are negative. Okay, treating HIV and AIDS. Medicines can slow down the growth of HIV, but there isn't a cure for it just yet. Drugs have been developed to slow down the growth of HIV and treat opportunistic infections that occur in individuals who don't have healthy immune systems. Slow the growth of AIDS virus, people take a combination of drugs, a treatment known as highly active entire trio viral therapy. That's kind of a mouthful, but HAART, heart. Okay, so a lot of information that seems kind of almost over our head a little bit, but at the same time, they've really come into lots of advancements over the course of a couple of decades dealing with HIV and AIDS as deemed decades ago as a pandemic. Experts were pretty, and scientists were pretty worried about this particular disease until they figured out how exactly people were infected by it. But honestly, this is the disease that made Dr. Anthony Fauci really famous. He's somebody that you've probably seen quite often on TV right now as one of the specialists, the scientists that works right alongside the task force and the federal government dealing with our pandemic right now. And Anthony Fauci was on the task force right away when this came out to deal with HIV and AIDS, and has been working on this for decades helping to try and stop the spread of this particular virus, as well as helping to come up with treatments and prevention strategies. So honestly, it goes back quite a ways with Dr. Anthony Fauci. Hope everybody's having a great day, and we'll talk to you again. We've got at least one more video that I'm going to do for you guys, and then we're wrapping up distance learning for at least for the spring of 2020. Hopefully this doesn't go into the fall, but hope everybody's having a good day.